Why being born as Marilyn Monroe sucks. Imagine being the most desired woman on the entire planet, but not being able to find a single person who wants to know who you actually are. Imagine spending hours every morning in front of a mirror, carefully painting on a mask of a girl named Marilyn, just so you can hide the broken child named Norma Jeane who is terrified of being abandoned. Most people know her as the platinum blonde icon, the breathy voice, and the white dress blowing in the wind. No, the real story of Marilyn Monroe is a slow-motion horror film about why being born Marilyn was a masterclass in how society can turn a human soul into a piece of public property. In a world that worshipped her image, how did the most famous woman in history end up dying alone in a room full of prescription bottles, feeling like she never even existed? To understand why being Marilyn sucked, you have to look at the girl she was trying to bury. Norma Jeane didn't have a childhood. She had a series of foster homes and orphanages. She was the daughter of a woman who suffered from severe paranoid schizophrenia, a girl who grew up wondering if her own mind was a ticking time bomb. She was sexually abused as a child, moved from one cold house to another, and was married off at 16 just so she wouldn't have to go back to the state system. She wasn't born a star. She was born a survivor who learned early on that the only way to be safe was to be what other people wanted her to be. When she finally made it to Hollywood, she didn't find a dream. She found a factory that specialized in processing broken girls into profitable fantasies. The studio system of the 1950s didn't see Marilyn as an actress. They saw her as a product, a blonde bombshell that could be sold to the masses. She was effectively owned by 20th Century Fox. They controlled what she ate, what she wore, and who she was seen with. They forced her to undergo minor plastic surgeries and hair treatments that burned her scalp just to achieve a specific look. She was a woman of high intelligence, a poet, and a student of literature. Yet she was forced to play dumb blondes for a public that refused to let her grow. Being born Marilyn Monroe meant being a prisoner of your own beauty. Every time she tried to show her depth, the world laughed and asked her to wiggle her hips. She was a woman who was constantly screaming to be seen, while everyone around her was too busy staring at her reflection. The isolation of being Marilyn was a unique kind of torture. She was surrounded by the most powerful men in the world, from Hollywood titans to the Kennedy brothers, but to them she was a trophy, a secret, or a political liability. Her marriage to Joe DiMaggio was a clash between two types of fame. He wanted a traditional Italian housewife who stayed at home, but the world demanded she be public property. He allegedly became violent because he couldn't handle the way men looked at her. When that failed, she turned to the intellectual Arthur Miller, hoping he would see the real her. Instead, she found a diary entry where he admitted he was disappointed in her, calling her a child he had to take care of. Every time she reached out for love, she found a man who was in love with the poster, not the human being. Then there was the physical decay that the cameras never showed. Marilyn suffered from chronic endometriosis that caused her agonizing physical pain every single month, often leaving her bedridden. This condition also contributed to multiple miscarriages, which shattered her spirit. She wanted to be a mother more than anything, but her body, the very thing the world worshipped as the pinnacle of womanhood, betrayed her over and over again. To numb the physical pain and the crushing depression, she turned to a cocktail of barbiturates and champagne. This started a cycle of addiction that the studios ignored as long as she could still stand on a set. They called her difficult and unreliable when she showed up late, not realizing she was fighting a daily battle just to stay conscious. By the early 60s, the mask was slipping. Her mental health was deteriorating, and the paranoia she inherited from her mother began to take root. She was terrified of ending up in an asylum, yet she was being pushed to work more and more. She was a woman who was profoundly lonely in a room full of people. She would call her friends in the middle of the night, slurring her words, just to hear a human voice that didn't want anything from her. She felt like a freak, a museum exhibit that people paid to stare at, but never bothered to help. She had achieved everything she thought she wanted, only to find out that the top of the mountain was the coldest place on Earth. The end of the story is the ultimate proof that being Marilyn sucked. She died at 36 years old, lying face down on her bed, clutching a telephone as if she were waiting for a call that never came. Even her death was turned into a mystery, a conspiracy theory, and a spectacle. She wasn't allowed to have a quiet exit. Her body was put on display in the morgue, and her private journals were picked apart by scavengers looking for a headline. She had given the world everything: her image, her body, her secrets, and in return, the world left her with nothing but a legacy of sadness. She was a woman who was loved by millions, but died without a single person who truly understood her. Being born Marilyn Monroe meant being the world's favorite mirror. People saw in her whatever they wanted to see: innocence, sex, tragedy, or glamour. But nobody ever saw the woman herself. She was the ultimate victim of the Hollywood machine. She is the reminder that you can have your face on every magazine in the world and still be invisible. Next time you see her iconic smile, remember the girl who had to paint it on every morning just to survive another day. She was the queen of Hollywood, but she died a prisoner of the dream she fought so hard to achieve. She was the brightest star in the sky, but she was burning herself out just so we could have something to wish on.